Just making sure everything's working here on my laptop. As you see, I'm somewhere else today.
I love how everyone's backgrounds are different because of I guess we're in different places.
Holidays.
Holidays.
What's going on? People coming and going. Hey, everybody. Glenn, Mauricio, Holly, Neil, Hannah, Garuns, Sammy. You guys are hiding. Heather. All right. Let's see. We're recording. Yep. All right. Who has some questions? Who would like to share? We have actually, if you have those, let me know. But also, we have um, quite a few of you guys in the fellowship. Um, so I think it's most of you. Because we don't really need to talk too much about it because we'll have to mute you, Darun. I got it. So pretty much everybody here except I think Mauricio is in it, so we don't really need to talk about it. But sometimes it's fun when we have a bigger group and they don't know what it is, and you guys just did the first one, but we'll talk about that tomorrow. Who has something else they'd like to ask about? Any concepts from the book? Remember, for fellowship participants, this is a different format. Um, so I know you guys are eager to dive into stuff. We'll be doing that tomorrow, but um, any shares since joining the group? Any holiday questions about life, about the book, about concepts, feeling, being with family during the holidays, anything like that? Something completely different. Nope. All right. Well,
I have a few things.
okay.
Um, so after I spoke to my mom a few weeks ago,
Well, tell
I
us
also
about
spoke.
that. I'm not sure if you shared it on the calls, just on the forum.
Hmm, maybe I
Maybe.
didn't. Um, yeah, so I had reached out to her because I had uncovered some things that I had repressed my whole life and asked her a bunch of questions, and she showed up for me in a major way. And then I talked to my grandmother about the same thing,
Right.
and there was some conflicting information. So I've been sitting on it for a little while and dreading confronting her about it. And I did yesterday, and she does not remember some things. And I found out some other things that were really similar across, generations in our lives, as well as just I was blown away by some of the things that we talked about. We talked for 3 hours. My mother and I've never talked like this before. Um, and I was terrified that she wasn't going to show up for me again, that she was going to, opt out. Because I gave her the option, when we first started talking, like, hey, is it cool if we talk about some stuff that might be really heavy? Um, I don't know if you really want to confront yourself so we can have a deeper relationship because I feel distance between you and I, and we don't have any depth to us. And I want that with you. And I don't know how other than going through some pain. And she said yes. And yeah, we talked for like 3 hours yesterday.
Anything you'd like to share that have helped you?
I I had been so focused on what had happened to me, I didn't even, it's not that I didn't know that things happened to her. I just wasn't focused on it. And so I had to give myself some grace in that moment because I really I had gotten kind of small focusing on just what I was experiencing and what I wanted to know. And she had some things she really wanted to know as well. And it changed the entire scope of the conversation.
And what she wanted to know was that stuff you learned from your grandma?
What she wanted to know was my experience of some things. Like when I talked to her originally, I didn't go into any detail about what had happened. I just gave her a very broad overview. Um, and she actually asked verbatim, like, what happened? And I dove and I told her, and we were starting to grieve together because of some of the things that happened in our family. My stepdad was a horrible person, like just complete psychopath. And it's kind of um, it's amazing that any of us are even alive. So there were some things that she had shared with me about what had happened to her. She was very young when she had me, um, very naive, didn't had no idea how to live life. Not that we're all growing and learning as we go, right? But just so young, so little experience, and then dealing with that, and then having kids at the same time, and trying to protect us and herself. It was a mess. Um, so just being able to really talk about this and take the filters off and just acknowledge what happened, and I truly believe that she doesn't remember certain things. And she kept asking, like, where was I? Where was I? Like it was driving her crazy that she didn't know. So it was a really powerful conversation.
So what's prevented that from happening before? And what's changed within you to move this forward? Because obviously you're the one who, chose to move it forward.
Well, a big part
Andrew,
of it,
sorry, Holly. For some reason, I can barely hear you, Andrew. I hear Holly well, but we can barely hear you. I don't know if it's my
Can you hear me?
computer.
Okay.
Only
Testing, one,
Holly.
two, three.
hello,
It's
hello.
very, very, very low.
Testing, one, two. Hmm.
I
I
I
can
can
hear
hear
you
you.
okay.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
hear
I
you.
think
It's just a
too.
little bit softer than usual. That's
Softer.
all. But I can hear you.
So I think one thing that's changed is my capacity to deal with discomfort. I think after uncovering some of the things that I uncovered, it's like, what do you got? Like I don't know if it gets worse than what I uncovered. And I guess the gift in that is I'm not as afraid of things anymore. And I've also had a lot more self-compassion. Um, I didn't go through everything that I went through to have a shit life right now. And so I'm showing up in my own life more. And, when I feel people missing now. When I was so cut off from myself before, I didn't really feel that as deeply. But now it's like when there's a disconnect, I feel that on a very visceral level and it hurts. And the pain of that disconnection was so strong that, you know, taking a risk was less painful, I think, at that point.
So what's hmm. One of the things that you hear me talk about a lot in this work are our relationships. And when I say that, I don't necessarily just mean people to people, right? What's our relationship to, with a concept, something within ourselves, an archetype, a space, each other, right? So our relationships to and with these things transform throughout this work. What obviously something is starting to shift in your external relationship. What's changed internally with your internal relationship with your mother inside yourself? How you see her, how you relate to her in your mind, right? Because we have, oh, my mom's like this, my dad's like this, my spouse is like this, or my kid's like this. And then you have the actual interaction with them, which is the real thing. But we have an internal image that represents these people. And so when we're doing the cinesomatic work, one of the things that we work on is our relationship to these certain archetypes, right? So there's the mother archetype, the father archetype, that sort of energy that goes between all mothers and fathers, right? That core principle. So what has changed inside for you in the way you relate to your mother internally?
I think that I dropped expectation. I think in the past I've been pretty rigid about any expectations that I have of, even one thing that could happen, but that translates to a larger scale, how entire relationships go, and it goes back to that rigidity thing of having a wall instead of a boundary. I was focused more on the ways that someone could hurt me than the ways that I could connect with people. And, I think I had a very frozen in time image of her, and I didn't give that a chance to change because I just kept relating to her in the same ways.
Exactly.
As if that were true.
Great. Anything else? Any questions? Anything else you'd like to share?
Yeah, I actually was rereading the Dragons and Their Treasure chapter again today, and had some holy shit moments about it, because I felt like the last little while I've been in that dark place, and when I read that part about having the light within you does not go out, that was just something that I really needed to hear today. And I don't remember reading that initially. You can't obviously pick up every single thing in the book. There's just so much.
Yeah.
But
I even forget what's in the book sometimes. I'm like, oh my,
yeah.
hey, I like a reading, like, that's really good. Where'd you hear that? Oh, this is my book. Okay.
So, I was curious about your experience, about your dark night of the soul, what was
Yeah,
your
which
darkest
one?
moment, because clearly you've been through this.
Yeah.
And I've never been through this before, so it's just kind of like flailing and like holding on for dear life,
Yeah, pretty much,
at
yeah.
points. And so I don't have a reference point whatsoever, of how to do this or how to survive or what, the other side looks like. So it's kind
Yeah.
of,
Yeah, the book is actually pretty good. That one section right before I go into the A5 process, I think I've shared this before. I give like a few paragraphs. It's kind of like more of like a story. I have my book's upstairs. But I shared with it on the call before. I actually read that part. This was early on, and I talked about the entire process of shadow work is found in that thing I just narrated, right? In the story of you're going to feel like you're entering into the abyss, and then you're going down, and then you come across a dragon and the threshold guardian, and you face them, and everything in that. It's like 2 or 3 paragraphs, and it's something most people miss and forget, but it lays out exactly what's going to happen and how it feels. And everyone's going to have variations of it, but archetypically, that's what it's like. So I don't say this. I'm sure there's other books that can, other teachers, other books, other stuff like that that can offer something helpful as well. But really, I'm biased, so take it as that. But I think what I lay out in the book is a pretty good, like, what to expect. And when things happen, this is what that's like. So, for example, about having a vision. When you're struggling and you're just loaded with all these stories and traumas, and you start healing them, you start freeing up all of that energy to go towards something else that was once tied up to that. And if you don't realize that, and if no one ever told you, hey, as you start healing this stuff, that energy that was once tied up in that is going to want to go to something, so make sure you have something productive for it to go to. If someone doesn't know that, what might happen is they start making progress through the healing, and then it reconfigures itself into something else because they've never changed their vision. They're still focused on being broken, or in abusive relationships, or in poverty, or whatever it is. So I did my best that I could in the book to give all of the, like, this is a booby trap, booby trap, booby trap, booby trap. You know, look out for this. When this happens, this is what it's going to feel like. This is like what is next in that process. So when you're in this dark night of the soul, it's kind of, it's like a bit like, the closest thing I can really compare it to is psychedelics, where you're in it and you're just going to be in it. And whenever it's done, it's done. Now, you can consciously make choices to accelerate that process, to learn the lessons, to relate to it in ways that are more productive. But there's all the shadow material that you haven't faced. And so you're in a process of facing these things, and especially feeling them. So knowing that there is something on the other side of this, but be willing for there not to be, that's the abyss. When you're going into the abyss and all you see is darkness, and it's like, well, you can fight it, or you can surrender to it, and you're going to be in that fucking abyss, and you're going to fall at some point. At some point, it's going to open up on the other end. So if it was clear cut, cookie cutter, it wouldn't be worth it. If we could predict it, if we would know. So my biggest experience has just been not in a surrendering as in, I fucking give up, what's the use, I'm just going to be in this forever, it doesn't matter, but in a, all right, I'm in it, let's do it, let's go, show me. Like, I would say that same thing I would say to a psychedelic medicine or a mystical experience. Show me, what do I need to see? If you take that approach of, you're in this because you're learning something, because you're transforming something, you're transmuting something, you're evolving something, you're in it for a reason. And as long as you stay open to that reason, and you're at choice, you're eventually going to get through. Now, I add that last little piece, because if you just let go and you're just flailing and you're just a victim, right? If you're a victim to the experience, like, sometimes people take surrender too far and they like self-flagellate, or they are waiting to be rescued by the divine or the government or whoever, white knight on a horse. That doesn't work either. So you have to be at choice, because you can be learning the lessons, but if you're not making the new choices, it really isn't going to do anything. I don't want to say that. I take that back. It's going to do something, but you're not going to be propelled forward into a new living, a new way of living. So if you keep learning the same lessons over and over again, but you still keep making the same choices over and over again, you're going to still be caught in the cycle. So at the very end, when I talk about above all else, right, that whole chapter, right, you guys should have this like memorized now, right? Feel, stop, feel, tell the truth, make a new choice, take responsibility, make a new choice. And it's in that order too. It doesn't, I mean, it's non-linear, right? But if you look at it in a linear process, that's how you have to progress. Because if you try to take responsibility, but you haven't stopped anything, you haven't told the truth, you're not feeling, what are you taking responsibility for? Or making a choice. You make a new choice, but you haven't done any of the rest of the stuff. You're still doing the same addictions. Great, you made a new choice, but these things are still running. So that process is very, very, very helpful. So it's this combination of saying, show me, what do I need to see? What is in this for me? What do I need to do? How do I need to show up? So it's coming from that humble energy. There's also the fighter energy, like fucking let's go. We're diving in, battling, and there's some moments that require that, especially if you're out of relationship with it. So you always have to look at what your relationship is. Someone who's a warrior, right? Someone who's been fighting their whole life, probably the lesson is to stop fighting and to surrender. Someone else who's been a victim and blaming other people their whole life and has not stood up for themselves, probably their lesson is start standing up for yourself. Fight, show up. Like, your life fucking depends on this. What are you doing? So that's going to be different for everyone, right? But it's still the show me, what's my lesson? And it may come in waves. You may come through this particular one and find another. It's not been my experience to only have one. I'm also bizarre, like, please don't ever use me as a metric. Like, doing psychedelics, don't use me as a metric. Doing this work, starting a business, do not use me as the metric. But I think that's important too, because if you look online, they're like, oh, Dark Night of the Soul, it's just like a one-time period. But how much you plan on evolving, how much you plan on growing and healing and transforming over this lifetime, you may have more. Or maybe it's like an extended one and you have some reprieves, like, okay, I got this section of it, things are good. All right, now there's my intimate relationships. Okay, got that one. All right, now here's my finances. So I'm talking a lot here, not answering your question, but there's a lot of different pieces. That's why the book's so fucking big, because it's not just like, all right, this, and this, and you're set. It's a journey. It's if it was laid out and you knew everything to do, you know exactly, it wouldn't be worth doing, right? So if you take sort of this surrender spirit, this humble spirit, this adventure spirit, which, all by the way, if anybody knows in our symbolism work, right, what's the tarot card that represents this? Somebody here has seen it. Oh, we're gonna play hard to get, huh? Come on. Somebody. Okay. All right. The Fool. All right. Right. The Fool. Now you're not necessarily in that archetype right now. You're probably in, like, if we're going to talk through tarot archetypes, maybe the Tower, maybe the Devil, maybe the Hangman, right? These sort of reversals, these collapsing of the egoic structures that we once had. The tower, right? You can even say that's man-made. There's a wall there, or even perhaps the chariot. Anyway, it's getting more into the esoteric teachings. But there's these archetypes that we work with that if you get into relationship with it, and as I think of this too, even the hermit, right? The hermit is a great archetype here because he's the one that holds the lantern. He's the one that holds the light. So when we are doing this advanced work in the work here, these are some of the resources, these are some of the symbols, the archetypes that when we can learn from and get into relationship with, provide us with these resources. So if we want to talk about archetypically through the symbolism work, when you talk about that last light, right, that's probably that light that's in the lantern of the hermit. So I know we're going off topic here, and a lot of you haven't done the symbolism work, but if it's interesting, it's very, very powerful. So what are you hearing? All over the place here, but these are all things that were in my experience of this.
Well, I think I figured out what's going on. The lesson that I was not getting. So hey, it's letting go of control. That's a huge one. Of these, definitely something that I'm noticing that I've really struggled to do. And then, also in some ways romanticize as well, like let go of control, it's fine, it'll be okay.
You
So it's
romanticize control?
letting go of it.
Oh.
So it's almost like same thing with vulnerability, which I think requires you to let go of control. It's like if you let go of control and you are vulnerable, which is somewhat hand in hand to some degree, then different things can happen. But those things seem very difficult for me to do.
So let me ask you this. What's the difference between letting go of control and surrendering?
Intent.
What else?
Um,
What's the intent difference? Let's actually just look at that.
well, I think surrendering, it's a conscious choice. I think just letting go is like almost like an absolution of responsibility.
Well, I don't know. I'm going to push a little bit. Letting go is a choice, right?
The initial part, I would say, this is just from my experience, but like letting go feels like, okay, now I'm letting go in the reins, whatever happens, happens, like I don't have any more responsibility now.
Okay. I get it.
Whereas surrendering is like a continual choice, I guess.
Okay, cool. I get it. Yeah. What else?
I think surrendering is more of relational. Like it doesn't have to be, I guess.
Anybody else too? If anybody else has some ideas, the difference between letting go of control versus surrendering.
When I hear letting go of control, I still have some judgment with it. But when I surrender, when I think of surrendering or feel surrendering, I kind of accept whatever's occurring.
What's your judgment?
It could be I like this or I don't like this. This is good or this is bad. Like just because I let go of control of it, I feel like I'm still judging. I mean that in a grand sense, like that there's still some right, wrong, good, bad, like it, don't like it. It's just that I'm not in control of it.
Okay.
But yeah, surrender feels like it doesn't, for me, it doesn't come with judgment. Like when I surrender, I just like accept and take away those labels of good, bad, right, wrong. I like it, I don't like it.
Cool. Great. Who else?
Hey, Andrew.
Hello.
To me, surrendering or letting go of control is a form of surrendering.
So letting go of control for you is uh,
A way to surrender.
okay. So it would be hierarchy, right? So you'd have surrender and then letting go of control is a way. Okay. So
Yes.
what would be another way? What would be like a sibling to that underneath surrender?
Acceptance, accepting what is.
Okay.
Um, accepting people like they are, circumstances,
Okay.
um,
What else?
basically, basically anything outside myself. The things that I cannot control is everything outside myself. That's
What's
what I would say.
yourself?
My thoughts, my actions, my emotions, feelings,
Okay.
and
So,
yeah.
all right. So, what about accepting inside of those? What is that? How would you call that? Because acceptance is about the external. What is it about the internal?
Could it be surrendering?
Well, that's what we're talking about. All these are a form of surrendering. Yeah. So, what's the distinction that you make between an internal surrender and an external surrender? An internal acceptance versus external acceptance?
Well, probably the internal surrendering is something that I have the power to modify, change, or control.
Yeah. So, yeah, so this brings, it's an interesting thing, right? So, what is inside, outside? What's in your control? What's in your not control? Right? If you accept something inside yourself, does that imply that you don't have control to change it? But then, accepting is about not having control, right? About letting go of control, surrender. So could we say, could you accept something inside yourself that you didn't have control to change?
Well, I think if I do that, I'll be free.
That's easy. Great. Anybody else? Any other ideas around letting go, acceptance, surrendering?
Lately hi everybody.
Hi.
Sorry for my internet problems before. I hope it wasn't distracting. Um, but lately I've been pondering this myself because I have been having to surrender to some of my rage and confusion with what's been going on, with something that I have confronted in my life, my dad. And in that process, um, was the A5 process of surrender and finding the lesson and the message in that. So it was a complete acceptance of my feelings, with it was devoid of the ego, um, and just seeing the lesson, but not thinking it, just feeling whatever came up in that. and then using that as a way to help with my healing, regardless of how I felt, and just gave me the strength to continue on with next steps. That was kind of my interpretation at the moment of surrender. That makes sense.
And how did it give you strength? How did this, because normal, right, in the normal world, surrender and strength are like not it. But you're saying that your willingness and courage to surrender gave you strength. How?
Because even though I have needs that haven't been met, I know that just because something's happened and just because it's still happening. Oh, sorry, I'm getting distracted. Excuse me, go back, please. I'm so sorry. Cut, leave the room. 4-year-old and 2-year-old. Life. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I like that I can kind of watch them follow you around.
Yeah. This is totally against the rules, and I don't mind if you just mute me and let me express my idea of surrender next time. I won't be offended.
Oops, I was muted the whole time. I said, well, it looks like this is an opportunity to surrender.
Yes, this is my
Yes,
opportunity to surrender. This isn't working right now, but I can share on the group later.
that's fine. Yeah, play with your kids or feed them or whatever they need.
Yes, my attention,
Yeah,
even though I've
well,
been giving it to them all morning.
yeah, well, they certainly need a lot. Those
Yes,
those children things.
I apologize. I'm so sorry.
That's all
I did
right.
have somebody watching them, won't name names, and they have failed on their job.
Well,
And I just tripped over one of their toys.
well, let's make sure you. Oh, all right.
We are getting a wonderful house tour while you're doing
Yeah,
this. I know. So you're
Guys,
taking us to your backyard, to another room, and this room, and
I know it. I know it can feel annoying or embarrassing, but we're here to love you and support you. And luckily, it's not a workshop or anything, so there's no
yes,
high pressure.
I'm so sorry though. That's
It's all right. You're showing us an example of, well, do we surrender? Do we fight it?
yes. So true. Where were we?
I think we were in a different room. So, anybody else want to chime in about surrendering and the strength? How does surrendering give you strength? Or letting go of control, acceptance, this whole theme. You guys get to see there's similar
It,
feelings between things. But if you stop to really feel into the different words, they're not like perfect synonyms, right? They're not perfect replacements. You just meditate. All right, what's the difference between surrender and letting go? What's the difference between controlling and being in control? What's the difference between being at choice versus making choices? So a lot of these things on the surface feel like semantics, but if you do this work and you feel into it, what's the feeling? Oh, we had a great one. I was, it's kind of a side note, but about the same sort of process. When I was working with the shamans down in Peru a few weeks ago, they all spoke Spanish, they didn't speak English. And every interaction with them, I would go up, they would do their thing, and they would end. It was like, whoosh, 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 gracias. And I would say, gracias. And I know, and then just a few days ago, I was noting some of this stuff. I realized I never heard them say de nada. I've never heard them say, you're welcome. And it's like, that's interesting. They always said, gracias. But it never felt like disrespectful. Oh, you're not going to say you're welcome? It never felt like that. And so I felt into it, kind of the same thing we're doing here. But I added some movement to it. So I was feeling through it with movement. And I said, okay, what if I say, you're welcome, and thank you, you're welcome. And so it's like, thank you, you're welcome, thank you, you're welcome, thank you, you're welcome, thank you, you're welcome. And it kind of felt like this sort of energy. But then when I went, thank you, oh, thank you, gracias, oh, gracias, it started to feel more like an upward spiral, where the thank you and you're welcome was more of a completed exchange, it'd finish it. Whereas thank you and then thank you kind of just felt like the next thing was just another thank you. Not just in the conversation, but energetically in life. And it was sort of like from a completely different angle of a practice of gratitude, right? People talk about having a better life, being happier, manifesting, positive psychology, all this stuff, right? Be grateful, be thankful. And so I've never heard anybody talk about this before. It was just my own experiential way of playing with it. But then I tried it on, right? I tried it in my body. It's like, oh, thank you. And I had other insights about that's what money should represent. Right now, most money represents debt. So before we go down another rabbit hole, if you look at most of your money, it says this is a note, legal tender for all debts, public and private. We're exchanging debt. We're not exchanging wealth. We're not exchanging real money. And so this was sort of just kind of another little branch on the same vine of money. Commerce is an exchange of gratitude, right? Thank you for this wonderful meal. Thanks for this meal. And hey, thanks for this meal. Money, great. Oh, thank you for the money. Here's this great meal and mirror. And so it's like, oh, imagine if every time we paid something, oh, my electric bill, thank you for providing electricity. My water, thanks for providing water. Oh, thank you for paying us money for this water. Thank you for paying us money. And so that has a similar feeling to it, where it just, your wealth increases through the increase of gratitude. So I'm not sure if they had this theory behind it, the shamans. Certainly they had something to it, because I know they would know how to say you're welcome. De nada, it's nothing. But de nada, it's nothing. But also that's kind of a negation. So these are kind of the little things that if you meditate on the right things, the stuff like this, these nuances, these variants, if you add cinesomatics to it, if you add the embodiment piece, you can really start exploring these things. In your own language, if you can go into the roots, like Latin and stuff like that, there's some stuff there. But the most important thing is how you feel, the energetics, how you embody it. So anyways, that's a similar way of what's the difference between letting go and surrendering. And trying them on and feeling them through, you develop your relationship with these concepts. And when we do cinesomatics, and we do the embodied archetypes, that's like getting into relationship with these concepts, like turbocharged. So just sort of like a fractal on how this works. Darun, you're giving me a funny look. What's going on?
All internal, I'm afraid, Andrew.
Oh,
It's all about me. All
yeah.
about me. I don't know. I think when Holly first started talking, I started getting a sense of nauseousness because I think that a lot of the things that Holly, you were talking about your relationship with your mum and even Samantha, you were talking about your relationship with your dad. That's something I could share and needing to have those hard conversations. And I think there was a lot of resistance to everything that you were helping arise out of me, and it's just I was yeah, and so even in the control, out of control, surrendering out of surrender. This was also part of what we were talking about earlier, Andrew, about surrendering to that the retardedness, the spasticness that I was feeling inside of me, and how that's been just birthing just so much other stuff. Just a lot going.
Would you like to share?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I was just thinking similar in terms of letting go of control and controlling and surrendering for so long in my life. Um, there was a sense of ugliness and there was a sense of there's something really bad about me, something just a lot of self-loathing. And I a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a month ago, yeah, before Andrew went to Peru, I just discovered this way of moving that I've never really moved before, and I was acting out and rather than actually feeling.
Oh, back up a minute.
Yep.
What did you have to do to start doing that?
Well, I was getting there.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wait, maybe I'm not. I'm not
Oh,
sure. But I remember,
yeah, not even moving, right? You've been resisting moving for like a year and a half.
yeah, Andrew's been telling me move this way, move that way, and I'm like, I needed someone else to give me the solution as opposed to I'll do the movement and um, get the insights myself. And I just didn't know how to access that part of me, or as I discovered, very resistant to actually just doing it myself. And I think there was an entire storyhood about Andrew. I'm coming to the sessions with you. You give me the solution, or I'll find an answer that's always outside of myself, everything outside myself. And I think he made me do the movement, and for the first time, I'm like, holy crap, I can feel my hands. And so Andrew's like, okay, just keep doing that and focus on feeling every part of yourself. And I said, all right, if I don't do it, I'll pay you $1,000. And he's like, every day. And I'm like, fuck, all right. Every day I don't do a movement, I'll pay $1,000 to you, right? And so then, um, bye, Samantha. So every day I've been doing this, and the first few weeks was hard. I was just like, this is shit. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm feeling. And I'd cheat my way in a few times, like, barely just do the movement. I'd be like, I got 5 minutes, I'll do it here in the shower, I'll just do it. But after a couple of weeks, I just realized, oh my goodness, I was just ignoring this massive amount of feeling in my face and my body and my upper chest, and I was trying to act out the masculinity, the femininity, all the different concepts, and in doing so, I was ignoring what was always at the forefront. And so I'm like, okay, what is this about? And so when I started feeling to that, I started to look myself in the mirror, and it was just actually, I looked at myself, it just looked really horrible. I was just acting like, and it feels like really non-PC here, like just acting like a spastic and acting like a retard, but it just felt like, and after I just kept on going into it and doing that more and more and more, and I'd spend like, oh my goodness, I couldn't wait to do more of that, and I kept on getting space in my head, and I'm like, this is ridiculous, and my productivity throughout the day and all aspects of my life just shot up through the roof, and I'm like, what is going on here? And I realized a big part of me felt like really incapable, felt like almost disabled, and felt like um, yeah, just had no capacity to function in this world. And by finally allowing myself to surrender to that and actually act it out and then feel it and then look at myself in the mirror, I'm like, this is actually what you feel like. This is what you think about yourself. And then finally, because, and and a few of those in the call, like who was in the fellowship, I used to blur my background, and I needed to control everything about me. And this was just one thing. I needed to look good. I needed to control everything, and I couldn't even let myself feel the spasticness and the retardedness because it didn't fit in with an image I wanted to. And I finally let go of myself to actually show myself who I am by myself with no one there. I couldn't even do that. And when I finally let go to that feeling like a retard, feeling like a spastic, feeling like so crippled, and just space started to just happen in my head, and and I just felt like a functioning human being in the real world, like results in the real world just started to function. So that was my experience of surrendering to an image that I thought was despicable, and finally letting myself be me, which turns out to be this just a person that felt really, really dysfunctional and crippled and disabled and incapacitated in a way. Um,
And that's what we would call your shadow, right? That was shadow material.
hmm. Right, yeah, yeah, no, that definitely felt it. And it just felt so horrible at the start, but it was really strange because I couldn't wait to start doing more of that. And every time the feeling arose, I realized that feeling crap was actually not due to the feeling itself, but the resisting of that feeling. But when I was actually acting out the crippledness, it felt really good. It felt like,
Mhm.
oh wow, it's just so horrible. And I'll be like in the mirror like this, just really acting it out. I felt so much better being like that rather than resisting it and having this image of this functional human being. And it was just really bizarre for me. And it was just finally letting go, just finally surrendering. I'm still not quite sure on what the distinction. I'm taking note. What is surrendering versus letting go, controlling versus in control. But I know that just letting myself be what I felt so much, felt beautiful, felt in a really weird way. Felt, and I could have never imagined that. And so I haven't had to give $1,000 yet to Andrew yet for any day that I missed, but I can't believe it. It just, yeah, just for
It's
the first
almost
time,
it's
like.
almost like it, almost like the instructions work.
Right. And it was really interesting because Neil, I was talking about you to Andrew. I'm like, oh my goodness, I see Neil flourishing every call I get there, just so much more. And I see like, I just talking to, and I'm like, oh, how's Hannah doing this? How's Holly doing this? And Andrew's like, they're doing the work. They're putting in the work. And I'm like, but I'm putting the work. I'm putting in the work. What am I doing? I've been doing this for like a year and a half. Like, why isn't I getting the results like that? And it just turns out I haven't been feeling. I've been trying to do everything else but feeling, and I never knew that. I thought Andrew telling me to do something and acting it out and doing this and doing that, that was feeling. I'm like, but I'm feeling, feeling, feeling. But I wasn't surrendering to it because I could only, for me, in my head, I should only feel in a way that fits this image. I wasn't allowed to feel outside that image that I could curate. And once I started to let go of that,
Mm.
it just be a retard, be a crippled, be whatever you feel like. It feels so nice not resisting that and then see the results in your life, which has been incredible. Um, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great example of what that process looks like to get into relationship with your shadow.
Mm,
That's a perfect illustration, guys. If you haven't done it, right, mental check mark. That's what I'm talking about, right? This part of yourself that you don't want to feel, you don't want to be true about you, that you've crafted an image to make sure you and nobody else ever thinks that about you. And then one day saying, all right, let's not
it's either
only,
$1,000 on the line or
or your
feel like
life.
this.
Yeah, or
Yeah,
your
all my
life.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, Hannah, money works sometimes.
It absolutely did.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes carrot or stick, you just
Mm,
you gotta work with the hardware you got. Um, but it's a great example because you that's a part of yourself you don't want to be true about you. And when you can let it be true about you and feel into it, right? And let yourself go there, say, I'm a cripple, I'm a retard, I'm a failure, I'm ugly, I'm whatever it is, a loser, I'm a coward. And then you own it, and then you do the movement, right? The movement helps you own it because it lets you embody it. If you just think, yeah, I'm sad and pathetic, no, feel it, go into it. What does sad and pathetic look like? What does being afraid look like? What does being a reject look like? What does being trapped look like? What does not being able to allow intimacy look like? Or being undesirable, unlovable? And just let yourself go there. But through the somatic work, it accelerates that process like you can't even imagine. And as you do that, the rune said it in a weird way is beautiful, but it's really not weird once you understand what's happening. You're like, oh yeah, this is what it's about. So when you hear me say things like you're suppressing beauty, you're standing for ugly, that's what happens as a result of not doing this. When you are protecting the cripple, right? When you're protecting the coward, when you're protecting the ugly person, when you're protecting the narcissist, whatever it is, instead of going into it and facing it and integrating it and letting yourself be it. Neil, we talked about this. Alec and myself gave you that feedback during the Slackline workshop of like, just go into it, right? Just really, just own it. Like, don't act it, don't hide from it, but just own it. And that's what Darun was talking about, also doing more in a container, right, of the movement container. And then when you do that, what happens is all that energy frees up when it starts moving through you. And then the beauty starts moving through you. But when you're stopping, when you're resisting the shadow material, the result is ugliness. So especially for Neil and Hannah, this is a really good reference point for you. Hannah, you've been fighting this for 2 years. That's what it means. That's what I talk about. Like when you get the feedback of, like for Darun, right? It'd be like, it feels like, how would I say it? Like in that example, it would be you're crippling yourself. You're disabled. You're retarded, or whatever it is. This is what it feels like. And so by going into it and saying, okay, well, let's own it, over time, over a very short amount of time, he was able to started to get these resources. Like, probably going to get a raise. He got great feedback at work. All of this stuff is happening in his life. He started to enjoy going into that energy because it's, as I say at the end of each section of Dragons and Your Treasures, your shadow is not what you think it is. And Darun, this was a 100% perfect example of what that is. And you're still going to find, as you kind of fully integrate this, what those additional resources are. Because you're kind of nearing the end, not the end, but you're over that hump and you're starting to get what that shadow material really was about. And the only way to do that is by owning it, by going into it. So when I give you guys the feedback about this stuff, it's not that I'm, when I see you in suffering, and I say, you're in suffering, I'm not making you wrong for it. I'm showing you that suffering is a resistance to feeling this shadow material that's there to love you, to inform you. So as Darun went into that and moved in his body and felt it, things only got better in the long term. The ego wants to say, oh, owning this spastic, disabled retard, whatever it is, or this cowardice, this effeminate, this stupidness, whatever it is. By owning that, I'm going to affirm it, and that's going to make it true, and then my life is going to suck. It's the exact opposite. The more
And
you
might I
fight it,
add,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, with all of that, like Andrew's giving the beautiful, articulate um, explanation for everything. I actually got much better results by it because I couldn't understand any of this, and that actually also stymied my progress because I actually told you, Andrew, like I needed to delete the need to understand. And I went into it, I was like, okay, what is this? Say this concept, do this one, is this plastic, is this, I just had to decide, just fuck all this shit, just don't worry about understanding, just feel.
Yep.
And only later on, like when I'm like asking Andrew, like, I don't understand what happened, he's like, well, you can back engineer it if you really wanted to. Like, okay, all the results in your life happened because you were doing this. Therefore, that feeling and that actually, like, you can see that it kind of connects, right? And I realize that now in retrospect, but in it, I had to let go of all that trying to understand in order to get here. And I used to think, oh, I identified with my intelligence. Okay, I'm a very smart person. I can actually figure this out. This equals this. Had to get rid of all of that and just feel.
Because when you're in it, if you're making it about all those other things, you're not doing it right. You're not feeling. If you do this in order to get something from it, it's not going to work. If you play to become better at work, you're not playing right.
Mm.
That's what weekends are for most people, right? In the factory system. Weekends are just rest so you can be more productive during the week. It's not because the factory workers will actually want you to play. So when you come and do this, if you're trying to understand it, that's not the point. The point is to feel it. It's to be it. But if you're only being it and trying to feel it in order to understand or get something from it, it's going to slow the entire fucking thing down.
Right.
It's not fully surrender. You're trying to get something from it. You're not supposed to try to get anything from it. You're just supposed to fucking let go. Feel, listen. You could get absolutely nothing in your head from it and then go fucking 2 months later make $1 million. Like, it doesn't have to be it's not a rational process. You can back an engineer and say, oh, I had that huge breakthrough, right? This is what you just said. I had a huge breakthrough, and then all this stuff happened in my life. I had no idea that doing that movement was related to any of this. Just like Elaine. You guys have heard her talk about the fucking circles. Right? I had no idea. She had no idea doing the circles would cause that much change in her life. But then looking back on it, oh, completion, energy, great. Oh, that makes sense. But while she was doing it, that's kind of one of the benefits of this we talked about in the slackline workshop with Elaine. She just does it. She doesn't even fucking know what she's doing. She's just like, okay, Andrew, and does circles. Fucking zoom. You guys have seen her in less than 7 months. I mean, out of depression. I mean, it's remarkable. This is a huge reason, right? If you guys are feeling jealous, left behind, confused, whatever it is, this is a great reference point. She just does it. It's just, she sometimes still doesn't understand stuff. It's fine. That works better, right? There's people that fucking understand the fucking of everything, and life still doesn't work. That was me until I did the embodiment work. Oh, it has to be in the body. It's all about feeling. And no matter how many times I've said it, right, the rune, you're just still getting it, right? It's just another layer of what that actually means. Excellent. What are you guys hearing? Any final thoughts here from either Holly, the rune, anything anybody said? Glenn, Neil, Hannah, anything you'd like to add?
There's a lot here that I can relate to. And yeah, I have a lot cooking right now. And um,
What do you
some
feel?
stuff I was going to bring up tomorrow in the fellowship or at
Yeah,
some
bring
point.
it up.
But
Bring it up then.
yeah, lots of dots connecting in my own story, just on things that have been said. So I know I'm being kind of vague, but it's been helpful to listen to Holly and Darun both, and yeah, so thank you.
I'm intrigued now, Hannah.
Yeah.
Stay
Until
tuned.
tomorrow.
Come back
Until tomorrow,
tomorrow.
huh? Yes.
Glenn, Neil, Holly, Heather, Mauricio, anything?
This is fucking awesome. Just awesome.
All right, I'll take it. I think we'll all take it. What do you give us something specific? What are you getting?
This this whole thing of um like lifting each other up, right? Like Darun does the work and Holly does the work and everybody gets something out of it, right? Like it's just it's just fucking awesome.
So, Heather dropped magic bomb right there. All right, we're moving everybody forward. Each one of you is
Shit.
incredibly integral to the group. It also works the other way. One of you starts doing bullshit and withholding and holding people back, right? You're going to hold the group back. And, right, we're all lifting each other up. A rising tide raises all ships. So, those of you that have been doing privates with me, some of the power of the group work. We get to learn from each other's breakthroughs and mistakes. Everything serves, especially what doesn't. Glenn, Neil? No? I just want to hear your voice, Glenn.
Yeah, I find this interesting about sort of playing out in your body what um, whatever you might be struggling with. So, like, can I play what does being small look like? And try to feel that, and
Yeah, archetype. We're going to do the archetype call, right? The third one? Yeah.
so,
So that's why you don't know this, because in that third one, that's where we do that. We're going to have you go in the archetypes and start playing with it and exploring it and finding new ways to move in it. Yeah, exactly. So that's what you do. So that's what I would call synesthetic archetype work, where it's also, if you have a concept like that, it's almost the same thing. Darun just kind of came from it from the other direction. He didn't have the concept. The concept archetype came just through the exploration of moving and feeling. Unless, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's my,
So
yeah.
precisely, I think it was harmful for me to think from a concept because I'd just be going to my head and trying
Yeah,
to act out that
exactly.
concept, and I never really made the distinction between acting out and feeling
Yeah.
and embodying it and moving through it. So, but the first time I kind of learned that. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and even the word acting out, right, is
Mm.
is incorrect,
Yeah.
because you're not acting. You're actually embodying. You're expressing it from feeling.
Mm.
You can
And,
act
and I,
out.
and I kind of said that as well because I'm like, oh, it kind of was very similar to Glenn when you were saying playing out. So I'm like, oh, okay. Like for me, I needed to understand the distinction between feeling and acting out or putting it out there. So, yeah.
Yeah, and these things that again sound like annoying semantics, nitpicking, are the difference between a breakthrough or not. It's the difference between thinking and feeling. Thinking your feelings or feeling your feelings sounds similar. It's a whole fucking world apart. So yeah, if you don't have anything to do, if you don't know what to do, just start moving. Just start shaking, moving, wiggling, taking on, playing, exploring different archetypes somatically in the body. Just listen. Just explore it. That's what I was doing when I was talking about this. Oh, gracias, de nada, thank you, you're welcome. Oh, it just find the feeling. It's so powerful. I mean, you'll discover so many spiritual truths in this work. Many of these concepts are emergent, meaning that I didn't just sit down and say, hey, I have a theory that giving and receiving must contain giving and receiving. I just fucking watched hundreds of people do this. Oh, yeah, well, every time the giving feels really good, there's also receiving. Every time there's receiving that includes giving, that feels good too. Every time they're missing, it doesn't feel like it works. What else looks like that? Oh yeah, the yin and yang symbol. So there's an incredible amount of wisdom in your body. It's the same intelligence that makes the universe runs your body. And if you tune into that, you might learn a thing or two. Turn off the head, drop in your body, just feel. Listen from feeling rather than thinking about what's happening. If you just did that every day for 2 years, just that, actually follow the instructions. If you think the whole time, try to understand everything the whole time, it's not going to work. But if you just do that, like Varun's been doing, you're gonna discover some amazing things. Our ego just tries to overcomplicate it. Well, yeah. Well, what's this one fucking? No, just move. Just stop. Just move. Listen. Right. Thanks, guys. I'll see you guys, most of you tomorrow. And if I don't see you guys then, Merry Christmas, Feliz Navidad, and
Gracias.
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 Gracias. Bye.
Bye.
Gracias.
Thank you. Thank you.
All
Gracias.
right.
Good night.
Love you all.
Love you.